space are as countless as all the grains of sand on all the beaches of the earth. Each of those worlds is as real as ours. In every one of them, there's a succession of incidents, events, occurrences, which influence its future. Countless worlds, numberless moments, an immensity of space and time. And our small planet, at this moment, here we face a critical branch point in history. What we do with our world right now will propagate down through the centuries and powerfully affect the destiny of our descendants. It is well within our power to destroy our civilization and perhaps our species as well. If we capitulate to superstition or greed or stupidity, we can plunge our world into a darkness deeper than the time between the collapse of classical civilization and the Italian Renaissance. But we are also capable of using our compassion and our intelligence, our technology and our wealth to make an abundant and meaningful life for every inhabitant of this planet, to enhance enormously our understanding of the universe and to carry us to the stars.
Recognize that the very molecules that make up your body, the atoms that construct the molecules, are traceable to the crucibles that were once the centers of high-mass stars, that exploded their chemically enriched guts into the galaxy, enriching pristine gas clouds with the chemistry of life, so that we're all connected to each other biologically, to the Earth chemically, and to the rest of the universe atomically. That's kind of cool. That makes me smile. And I actually feel quite large at the end of that. It's not that we are better than the universe, we're part of the universe. We're in the universe and the universe is in us.
The global balance of terror, pioneered by the United States and the Soviet Union, holds hostage all the citizens of the Earth. Each side persistently probes the limits of the other's tolerance, like the Cuban Missile Crisis, the testing of anti-satellite weapons, the Vietnam and Afghanistan wars. The hostile military establishments are locked in some ghastly mutual embrace. Each needs the other. But the balance of terror is a delicate balance, with very little margin for miscalculation. And the world impoverishes itself by spending $1 trillion a year on preparations for war, and by employing perhaps half the scientists and high technologists on the planet in military endeavors. How would we explain all this to a dispassionate extraterrestrial observer? What account would we give of our stewardship of the planet Earth? We have heard the rationales offered by the superpowers. We know who speaks for the nations, but who speaks for the human species? Who speaks for Earth? From an extraterrestrial perspective, our global civilization is clearly on the edge of failure in the most important task it faces, preserving the lives and well-being of its citizens and the future habitability of the planet. But if we're willing to live with the growing likelihood of nuclear war, shouldn't we also be willing to explore vigorously every possible means to prevent nuclear war? Shouldn't we consider in every nation major changes in the traditional ways of doing things, a fundamental restructuring of economic, political, social, and religious institutions? We've reached a point where there can be no more special interests or special cases. Nuclear arms threaten every person on the Earth. Fundamental changes in society are sometimes labeled impractical or contrary to human nature, as if nuclear war were practical or as if there were only one human nature. But fundamental changes can clearly be made. We're surrounded by them. In the last 2 centuries, abject slavery, which was with us for thousands of years, has almost entirely been eliminated in a stirring worldwide revolution. Women, systematically mistreated for millennia, are gradually gaining the political and economic power traditionally denied to them. And some wars of aggression have recently been stopped or curtailed because of a revulsion felt by the people in the aggressor nations. The old appeals to racial, sexual, and religious chauvinism and to rabid nationalist fervor are beginning not to work. A new consciousness is developing which sees the earth as a single organism and recognizes that an organism at war with itself is doomed. We are one planet.
I mean, come on. Just think about it at the end of the day. You conquer people by keeping them divided, keeping them at odds with each other, and keeping them warned like small, feeble-minded barbarians, tribalism. And while they're involved in all of this petty nonsense, you go about your business of conquering the world, weaponizing space, doing all kinds of things to bring about destruction of mankind. Personally, I think that we've evolved past this point in our lives. All of the old dinosaurs are basically dying off. All of these people that truly believe that because they're from some geographical side of the earth that they're somehow better than the other one, or because of some ideas that some politician created that you subscribe to, that somehow makes you better than anyone. It's foolishness at the end of the day, complete foolishness. I view myself from a different perspective nowadays, and I think my belief and my approach to things is different, a bit more futuristic, a bit more inclusive, a bit more universal. And this is why I say that my conscience is cosmic, and I think going forward, I think this is something that the whole world should subscribe to. We should look at ourselves as different species, but ultimately the human species and the earthling, we all share that, and we're part of a galactic community. And I think maybe once we embrace this thought process as far as loving each other, loving the earth, being more neighborly, more friendly, more loving, more compassionate towards others, I think if there was a higher being observing, they would think that we've evolved to a certain point where, contact could be made. I mean, don't get me wrong, if I was some being that traversed the stars and harnessing power of stars in the ether and all of that stuff, I'm pretty much assuming that if I'm 500 or a million years ahead of our thought process, then I'm far beyond that, and I would look at my species in general as some barbarians, some titans, some cavemans that I wouldn't want nothing to do with. And if I was waiting for them to evolve to a certain level of consciousness, that would be the consciousness that would probably, more than likely, make me assume that, okay, they're ready. I mean, because face it, these old religious systems, they don't work. They've basically been the cause of every war and atrocity that's happening all over the planet. And the funny thing about it is, most of their roots are rooted in astrotheology, the study of the cosmos and our connection to the universe itself. So maybe we should just think like the ancient ones did. Maybe that in itself is futuristic.